We must not forget the people when we are making environmental projects. The very first project I made, it was the School of Architecture in Lyon. I was just 25 years old when I won this competition. And that was the very first, my very first attempt to make sustainable development in my project. This project is born in 1981. So this building is already 30 years old. And this project has demonstrated a few things. If you see here on the picture, you will see the double glazed facade on the upper level. It's a double glazed facade, and in between the two glazed panels, the idea was to get here some heat on the western facade, that is the western facade, and to pull it into the eastern facade afterward. That was the very first attempt to find sustainable devices. At that time, we didn't talk about what is sustainability. We talked a bit about the materials, about energy saving, about solar architecture, about ecological architecture. And that are the studios. I must say that are the students, because they had been kept as they were before. And I'm not very glad with that, because my thoughts with this timber structure was that the students could really nail their things on the beams and really adopt the room for themselves. But it is absolutely forbidden to do everything in this room, because it has been decided that it will be protected, a protected building. So, but it has been the starting point for these thoughts about what is sustainability. And in principle, when we decided to start with this contradiction between a very heavy lower level, which is made of concrete elements, concrete blocks, as you can see them here on the picture, with big arches, which are really arches. It's not just a shape. It's U elements, 1.40 meters deep, which were all put together to make these arches. And in contradiction with this elevation, which was fully glazed. The idea for this building was to say, well, in the architecture, there are two main topics. The first topic has to do with this idea of what is the Wahrheit. I've got somebody who's speaking good German here. Yes. He's there. Could you come here on the first row? So Wahrheit is the truth. Yes. So yeah, so you can just stay here. If I can't find my English words, because I'm used to speaking German, so I have some difficulties in speaking in English. So it was this idea of having these spaces of the truth which is given by the professors. When you are in this room, you have to accept the truth with a big T. And on the upper level, you are making your projects, which is absolutely the contrary. That's the space of freedom. And after this, I made a few other projects in Germany and as well as in France. But that was my house in Lyon, which is a city in the south of France, in the north of the south of France. And you see here the main concept. There was a tensile structure, a kind of big tent, which was covering underneath small wooden boxes. The idea was to say, we'll build our house, our home by ourselves. So we decided to build first these metal stainless steel elements and then between these elements and over it we'll have the tent. It was done in 3 days, very quickly, and then it lasts, the work on site has lasted 6 months until we get our home. And our home was made of 2 sheets of wood, of plywood, one outside and one inside, and in between the insulation. This big concept of having a roof independent of the spaces which were developed underneath has been used in different projects, and a major project was the project of the Académie Mosseny, which was built in Herne-Solingen in the Ruhrgebiet, so close to Düsseldorf. That was a competition I won in 1990, and it has been an extremely, extremely dangerous as well as extremely great project. You see here part of the facade of the building. The concept of the building, well, the idea of the building was to make a very ecological building. So when we won the competition, we won it with a very simple idea. This idea was the following. When I went on the site in Düsseldorf, it was in February 19. I visited the site, and it was in February, it was raining, it was very windy, and we were on a ground which was absolutely black with old pieces of concrete everywhere. It was really ugly and very uncomfortable. So when I came back from this site in my office, I said, well, the only reason to make this project is to try to change the climate. And that's what we really did it. And the concept to make this building, it was to build a big glass house. A glass house which is 175 meters long, 75 meters deep, and 16 meters high. And in this glass house, which will produce a very comfortable climate in this region, especially in winter, we'll build buildings inside. And these buildings will be in wood, and most of the project will be done in wood. And in these years, it was really the very beginning of this theory of sustainability. And with my German partners, as well with my clients, we discovered it. And we tried to really look at all the items of what is sustainability today, which is the energy consuming, the energy producing, the water consuming and the water collection, the question of the grey energy, the embedded energy in the buildings, as well as the question of the health and the question of the comfort of the people inside. So here you see the entrance of the building, and you can see on the right side the multi-purpose hall which has been built inside. That is the inside of the building. So as you see here, it's really a timber building. The construction of the glass house is made of wood. The building inside are made of wood too. Why wood? Well, because it's the best material. For a sustainable project, it's the best material. It's even best as bricks, for instance, or it is as good as earth or stone. For which reason is it better? It's because, well, it's even better than these materials. Because it grows without any energy. It grows just with the solar energy. It doesn't need any water, any other addition of other materials. And the only energy which is calculated to give the quantity of grey energy, of embedded energy in this timber structure, it is only the energy you need to dry it. But in this case, it has been dried naturally, so without any energy. It means that our client had decided at that time, in the early 90s, to go with us in the forest with a certain amount of experts coming from Switzerland. In the forest, the trees which will be able to bear the loads, the future loads of the buildings, and to cut these trees and to let them in the forest and let them dry naturally. So that was really the very first and very courageous experience of the state of North Rhine-Westphalia, which was to decide to invest in the forest before building the building. And then they sold the timber and the wood to the construction firms in order to make the building and make the panels and everything. You see here on the right as well as on the left side the other wooden buildings which are looking very white because they have been lasered, well, with some painting to improve the quality of the light inside of the building. You see also in the first part of the picture the basins. They are filled with rainwater because of course we collect the rainwater, and it is stored in these basins which are used in the summer to refresh the air. At the end, what we thought will have done, what we said, the competition that will produce in this glass house the same climate as in Nizza, which is a famous city in the south of France, it's exactly the reality. The envelope, no. The curve of the temperatures inside of the building are exactly the same as in Nizza. It means that in Nizza it could be -5 in winter. And it is the case in this building close to Düsseldorf. The quantity of sun will be different, but the curve of the temperatures are the same. It means that through this system we could save a lot of energy consumption, of course. But in addition to that, the buildings are very well insulated. It means that we reduced the energy consumption to a minimum at that time, because in the early 90s we didn't know anything about passive house, for instance. But it's quite a very well energy-saving building. Here, in considering energy, our goal was not only to save energy, but also to produce it. So it has been decided to cover the roof with 10,000 square meters of photovoltaic cells, which made the highest or the biggest power plant, solar power plant, everywhere in the world with this building. It produced 1 megawatt. And 1 megawatt, it's a huge amount of energy which was needed by more than 100 houses plus the building plus. So you can see here the solar panels on the left side of the picture, as well as the openings of the glass house, because of course in such a glass house, if you keep it closed in summer, it will be a microwave inside. It will really burn everything. But it's not the case. Because of this ventilation system, you see in the basement the openings, keeping the fresh air from the outside, and the upper level of the glass house, these elements, parallel elements to the facade, extracting the hot air. It's the same in the roof where we have such openings. In this building, there are many different buildings. There is a hotel. Here you see the 2 hotel buildings with 170 rooms. There is a social building with a social aid. There's a library, there is a multi-purpose hall, there is a seminar, congress kind of Congress part too. There is a restaurant, there are sports hall. So it's a very beautiful, very big building. You see on the floor these light grey gravels, which are coming from very close to the site. Everything which has been produced for this building is coming from the neighborhood. It's the case for these gravels, it's the case for the wood, which is coming from a forest which was only 70 kilometers far from the site. And it's the same for all the materials. All the materials are very ecological. It means that we have cotton tepish, yes, and and we had also very ecological paintings without any COV, any emissions. Well, everything was studied in that way. The project lasted 10 years before it was finished. And it was finished in 97 and it was inaugurated in 99. It was part of the Emscher Park exhibition, which was the best IBA of Germany, well, up to now, I think. Here you can see the multi-purpose hall. It's a big, a huge parallelogram made of wood with a big hole inside, well, accepting different events. And you see here the basin, the pool inside of it with the terraces along this pool. The main advantage of this building is that everybody can come in and everybody can have a coffee or a cup of tea on one of the terraces inside. And more than that, people are playing pool each Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock. It was like that a few years ago. At 3 o'clock, could play pool in the inside and outside climate. Here it is the library. So of course, under this big roof, we could have, well, very different shapes, and we could avoid these DIN regulations, so the regulations which are compulsory in Germany to build. You see here the different photovoltaic panels. They are all, most of them are different, because we launch tenders to get the photovoltaic cells, because at that time the photovoltaic panels, they didn't exist. They had to make them for each project very well, in a very special way and in a handmade way. People took a piece of glass and then here people had to draw where are the different cells, and then people had to glue each cell after the other and to really to link the cells between them, and then to put another line of silicone all around the panel and to put another sheet of glass. And at the end, if you put it in the machine, you will see that 30% of these panels didn't work. That is why the government wanted to make this big roof, in order to give the possibility to the different photovoltaic firms and glass firms to build their own industry. That is why close to the site there was a fabric which was born from this project, and through these devices the photovoltaic panels lost 30% of their prices. One of the biggest advantages of this project, it was the timber structure, because it was built before the building inside were built. It means that we realized a big factory for the building. It means that all workers were working underneath without any problem, without any wind, without any rain. And that is a very important thing. It is this question of the prefabrication of the building, which is really urgent. If you can look at the buildings made of concrete at the moment, you will see these workers working by minus 10 degrees in winter with a lot of rain and making a very dangerous job. And to avoid that, which will mean to avoid the accidents for these people, it means that we'll have to provide new systems of buildings. And that was really, quite an important part of our work. Then, having made this wooden building in Germany, well, I made some others in Germany too, but I couldn't bring here everything. I made a very nice project close, in Lyon, which is a market hall. And this market hall is a timber market hall. And when I gave the competition, it was written on main panels that every column, every beam was a timber beam or a timber pillar and a timber cover too. But the politicians who gave us the contract to build it, they thought it was, they thought it will be steel. And when we wrote our first plans with timber, they said, well, why do you change your project into timber? And I said, well, it has always been timber. And they said, no, it's impossible. Oh yes, of course, it is possible. So I stick to this idea and I said, it will be timber. And we had some difficulties with our client, but it has been built with timber and now they are very happy with that. You see here the market, which happens 3 times a week under this roof. Everything is in wood. There are just a few metal pieces in the roof, which were necessary to brace the structure. And we decided to make them in steel because it was easier to dismount the building. Because in terms of sustainability, one of the most important things is not to build for hundreds of years. The word sustainable is very good in comparison with the 2 words in German where there is dauerhaft, it means that it will last, and the question of nachhaltig, which means sustainable. And in French we say développement durable. Durable, it means that it will last. And sustainable architecture should not last at all. It shouldn't disappear, but we should give the possibility to the users to transform it, to dismount it, to recycle it, and to build something else at the same place. Because when we look at the question of what is sustainability, and when we listen to this phrase of Gro Harlem Brundtland, who has written the first report about what is sustainability, she said that we must care about the next generations. And the next generations, you are very young. You are 20 years old, or you are in your 20th. Well, you are already old, but it means that you are very, very young. Because I'm sure I will live, well, yes, 40 years more. Why not? Until 100 years. And it means that you have just done 1/5 of your life. And in 40 years, what will be your needs? We don't know it. Because the needs of our grandfathers, or of our, more than that, much older people than our grandfathers, they were not the same as ours. So we have really not to think about the future. We can't think about the future. We can't imagine what our future will be. Absolutely not. If we have any idea of what will be our future, we'll make big errors. So the only way is to let the people arrange their rooms according to what they will need in the next future. Here you see here the building with the roof, which is a bit okay. and where I wanted to have some photovoltaic cells, but at that time it was impossible to have them in France. Nobody could imagine what is photovoltaic cells. So we had decided to paint these glasses. Well, my office did it for this building. Here you see the building with very simple ways of building it. Everything was prefabricated, of course, so it has been built in very few weeks. And if you see here the big stone here, which is bracing the whole building, and if you could cut the two steel elements linking the wooden structure to this big stone, if you cut them, everything will collapse. And that was great to imagine that everything could collapse, and then in 1 week you take everything away, you reuse the pieces of wood somewhere else, and you build something new. That is another project I made in Lyon, and that is a hospital. It's a hospital made of 3 sheets. On the ground level there is a glass sheet, on the upper level there is a stainless sheet, and on the above everything there is a wooden sheet. It's just a few pictures just to tell you that my aim is to use as much ecological materials as possible in a building, and in a hospital it's very difficult to use wood, very difficult. So I managed to use wood for the 3rd sheet, which means that the first layer is made for services which are in connection with the outside. The second layer, the stainless steel layer, it's the technique of the medicine, and the last layer. And you can see it, it's a photograph during the work on site. You see here the pavilions, the wooden pavilions, which were built on the grass of the terrace over the surgery, the urgency, and the X-rays zone. A very important thing is the permanence of the natural light in the building, and here you can see that there are big patios inside of the building to bring natural light everywhere. And that's a very important point too, not only to save energy, but to bring comfort to the people. Then I would like to show you a project which is already 15 or 10 years old. It's a museum. It's a botanical museum, which is in Bordeaux, and Bordeaux is a city in the west of France, close to the ocean. And this building is made of 3 different elements. The wooden elements there will be inside the museum as well as the administration. There are the glass boxes as glass houses for plants, and there are also the big concrete stones, where I couldn't avoid to have some concrete in this building because of fire regulations. So we have decided to keep these concrete zones, which were protected by the concrete envelope, but to connect all the elements all together, and that will make the architecture. Here you see the glass houses, which are covered too by photovoltaic cells. It was the first time that photovoltaic cells were integrated in the roof of a building. And here you see 1 or 2 pictures of the building. The building has changed quite a lot of time. It has there were three periods of buildings. First the foundations, and then the structure, and then the completion of the building, because there was no money to build it, and it was very, very cheap for France. So we changed the geometry a bit between the different categories of rooms we had, And it has, well, the results of our thoughts. There was absolutely not a piece of aesthetical point of view in this building, as well as in most of my projects, or all of my projects. No aesthetical point of view. Because it would be stupid today to think about what is beautiful and what is not. Because we are discovering a new world now. We are really trying to invent a new way to make architecture, to make it with the people too. So, not knowing which tools will work, how could we imagine what will be the building at the end? It will be absolutely unsinnig, not sensible at all. So this building, that was the result. Here is the space between the glass houses and the wooden buildings. And it's planted with palm trees because it's a very mild climate there. And in the glass house at the beginning, at the moment, we don't see anything because all the trees have been growing up and you don't see anything. But everything is built with wood and with these U-shaped glass elements which are very, very cheap. And you can see here the photovoltaic elements over the roof to protect the plants from too much solar gain on them. And then now I will talk about a project I've been working since 7 years now, and it has been completed 1 year ago. It is the Alpajol, and the Alpajol, you can see here, it's in the north part of Paris itself, so it's really in the center of the city, and it is a it has been a very difficult building because it was the aims of our client had nothing to do with sustainability. They didn't know anything about what is sustainability. In France, the situation in France is that most of the politicians, they are asking for sustainable projects, and it means for them energy-saving projects. But to save energy, it has nothing to do with sustainability. Why do they talk about sustainability? It's because they have heard of this word. And they are talking more about saving money than saving energy. And they save money for themselves, for what it will cost each month. But they don't save energy. In a passive house, for instance, if you build a passive house building, which will reduce its consumption to a minimum of energy, you will calculate during 80 years the amount of energy which will be needed by the building for its consumption, and the energy which is integrated in the construction of the building. In general, it will be 50%. It means that the quantity of energy which will be used by the building on site, by the materials used for this building, will be enormous. And it will be in comparison with the energy used for the consumption of the building, for its comfort, it will be extremely high. So we'll have really to reduce the amount of grey energy in our buildings. That is why I'm using so much wood in my architecture, of course. Because of very different subjects. Because lack of grey energy, because it's renewable, and that's a very important thing, to renew the material, because every time you are using bricks, for instance, of course, the brick, if it is burnt, and usually you are using burnt bricks, these burnt bricks, they are coming from the clay, and the clay is not renewable, not at all. And of course you can recycle it, but if you recycle it, with how many energy will you recycle it? So that's a very big problem, this quantity of energy in the building. If you use earth, and I didn't show you, but I've built also earth houses, then it's okay. Because when you are finished with your building, you destroy the roof and you let just the walls, and the walls will just go to the ground, and there will be earth again, and with this earth you can rebuild your building. But with other materials it's impossible. With concrete it's almost impossible. The recycled concrete is used under the roads for infrastructure of the roads, which means it's no recycling, absolutely no recycling. It's just rubbish put under the teppich, yes, that's all. And for bricks, it's almost the same. The only way to build in a sustainable way is like this building here, where there's carpentry, a timber structure, a beautiful one, and stone buildings. You can, when the building will be destroyed, you can reuse the stone, and a pavement made of wood. That is here one of the most sustainable buildings in Prishtina. And, well, everybody is very happy to be there. Why couldn't we do it the same way, using the same material? With another vocabulary, of course. With another way of making the architecture. With other forms, because anyway the functioning of the building will be different. But we should reuse these materials. Another way could be to do this. So to use, for instance, for insulation, using cloth, which are cut in small pieces to make insulation, or to use a glass which is made of recycled glass. That is a good solution too. But every time you are using a new material, you should calculate the amount of grey energy you will use. And that's a very important part of my work, doing that, is really to push the things to that point where there will be no problem. Even if I didn't, I couldn't get foundations made of timber. That would be great for me, to have timber foundations, which is a very good solution for many countries, especially for humid countries. You know that Venezia, is pillared on wooden foundations. You know that Bordeaux in the west part of France is made on wooden foundations. But nobody will do that. There are a few firms at the moment in the western part of France trying to use these wooden foundations. But most of you today, they think, well, she's a bit crazy. And I agree, I'm a bit crazy. But just to imagine what will be our future, we'll have to be crazy. To invent new ways of buildings. That's a very important thing, and I'm not crazy at all. You are crazy when you think that timber foundations don't work. You are the crazy people, even if I am the only one which will defend it. That's the reality. So, let's go to Pajol. Pajol, it was a very difficult thing. The city of Paris asked us to renovate an old factory in the city along the railway, Gare de l'Est, and asking us to put in a youth hostel with 300 beds, a library, some shops and offices, multi-purpose hall, a conference hall, and a garden. And they asked us, because, well, I told them that it was really necessary a few years ago. They asked us to put a minimum of 2,000 square meters of photovoltaic cells on the roof. And what we had decided, it was to go much further than that. It was to make a wooden building with very ecological materials, to cover the entire roof with photovoltaic cells, and to use as much as possible ecological materials, to use the railway to bring us the material, as well to bring it back to recycling, to reuse the rainwater, and to heat also the water for the bedrooms, naturally. Here you see the complete geometry of this big building, which has 10 shed elements in the roof, and everything which is dark is covered by photovoltaic cells. At the end, we had a positive energy building, so Plus-Energiegebäude, positive energy building, which means that it will produce, and it has already produced, more energy than the energy they will consume each year for its comfort. And here you see the old factory. It was a competition, of course, and we won the competition against all the architects in the jury because they couldn't admit that, well, our project has something of interest. But the politicians, well, they voted for us. And we won the competition with a very simple device. Most of our competitors had made new facades to this big hall and putting it. Say no. This carpentry here, you can see here, these metal frames and everything made of metal, has no specific value. It's an old, 100 years old building with steel elements, which are catalog elements, which have been built all over France and Germany, but it has its smell. And it was very good to give to this building its own patrimonial wealth. It was very important to give to this building the possibility to say what it has to say. So we said, okay, we'll take this building, we'll destroy the facades, it was metal sheets and very ugly elements, we'll keep all the structures, and we'll put building underneath, as what we did in the Académie Mont-Cenis close to Düsseldorf. And we put a wooden building under these steel elements. So you can see it here, well, that's not the best picture, here. You see here the old factory structure, and behind the pillars, between the pillars, there is absolutely no connections between the old building and the new building. Behind these pillars, there is the wooden building. The wooden building which will save as much energy as possible. On the roof here, you can see the photovoltaic panels. And it was a very big challenge because we knew already what was the quantity of square meters we will cover by photovoltaic panels. So we knew also what is the maximum consumption of our building, because we said that it will be a positive energy building. And it has been very difficult to stick in this figure. But, well, after some studies, which has lasted 3 years, 4 years, we have managed to have this positive building. The way we built it, we wanted to build everything in wood. Because of what I said concerning wood, of course, it's the most sustainable material I have ever seen. so we wanted to have walls as well as slabs made of wood. But when we calculated the quantity of space which were left for these floors, it was 27 centimeters.